fasting, you know, the body temperature is already lower and your reverse T3 is sky high. So the body's basically trying to say, hey man, we need you to chill out a little bit and conserve energy. And so what I would do is I would use cold as a cup of coffee, really. I wasn't getting in for like 5 or 10 minutes. On the first day we did maybe 5 minutes. And then after that, just dunking, and it's like, woo! Dude, it's like, it is, oh man. And it's like completely different. If you're getting in for 10 minutes on a rest day, the goal is to deepen your parasympathetic tone, right? It's like to override your CNS, to tap into your autonomic nervous system, and to more deeply relax and recover that parasympathetic tone. When you're fasting, or let's just say you need that cup of coffee, there's a totally different outcome you're looking for. So instead of like tapping into your body and CNS, what I'm doing is almost fighting it, and I'm like jumping in looking to get all jacked up. Totally different mechanisms, and it just really proves like your intention and how you're framing the experience and the outcome that you want to produce. This shapes all of life. It's not just the cold plunge, right? It's the interaction that we have this morning. It's the injury that I got in my elbow capsule, that bicep. I don't know if you guys heard that win that I shared, but it's like, if you can get excited about an injury, because now it's gonna create, now I have to be inventive, you know, to figure out how am I gonna train around this injury. And then you create new adaptations, new stimulus, new adaptations. And so you actually get stronger in other areas. It ends up being a huge net benefit, right? Like it's how we frame and live life. Create the experience you want to live in. Injury sometimes will prevent me from doing Olympic lifting. And so what I generally, so the fast made me brand new. Made me feel so good. That the day after the fast, I started squatting, and my squats felt so amazing. I was like, man, I don't know if you guys know, but I did a 10 by 10 of squats. So I did 10 squats every minute on the minute with 195 pounds. And when you take that much time off, you probably shouldn't come back and do that. But I did it because I did a squat, and I was like, oh my God, I feel lighter than I've ever felt, which is actually literally true, right? I mean, I lost 14 pounds on the fast, but I started squatting and I felt so light, and I felt so just energetic. Mechanically, everything felt good. I'm like, man, I'm gonna punish myself today. So yeah, the knees felt great, the elbow felt great, the shoulder felt great, the lingering issue, even in that elbow capsule, everything felt great. And I would say, I mean, you're not gonna feel any better than after a fast, but I would say my net benefit is still about, I'm way healthier right now than I was leading up to the fast. Yeah, and that goes all the way around, like physically with these injuries, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You know, just the other day I was telling Ben, I was like, man, you know what? Liver King's gonna get ripped again. I'm gonna spend the next 2 or 3 months just going through a cycle of getting leaned up. And Ben said, hey, you've been in such a great mood lately though. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I have been, but there's a price you have to pay, right? And so I think leading up to the fast, and even right now, I have a caloric surplus, but fasting, after the fast, man, I think mentally, emotionally, spiritually, not just physically, everything is firing on all cylinders. The main reason that Liver Queen and I started fasting is I grew up without a dad. And anything and everything that I can do so that I can be around for my boys and so I can be around for their children, I'm gonna do. And fasting, so you probably know that the caloric deficit also is a longevity practice. I'm not gonna live in a caloric deficit. I know how that looks to live in a caloric deficit. That doesn't go along with my lifestyle very well. But fasting is an incredible longevity practice. You probably already have heard of autophagy and apoptosis. Autophagy is just when cells are kind of cleaning out cellular debris, senescent cells that are just lingering in our bodies, that are sick, that are leaking inflammatory cytokines and making us sick. When you fast, that autophagy, just is an active process that you otherwise very rarely tap into. And then apoptosis, which I'm sure you guys have heard of too, is just programmed cell death. And our cells, when they're not behaving the right way, should self-destruct. But because we very rarely actually fast, think about this, and our early ancestors naturally would have gone through these periods of feast and famine. And again, when's the last day you went a whole day without eating? When did you go 3 days? When did you go a week? When did you go a month? Like, these practices were built into our early ancestors' lives. And so apoptosis is programmed cell death, when these cells should die at end of stage. Instead, they're mutating inside of us, and they're becoming other things, and other things that are making us sick. So I would say the main reason is really so that I can be around for my family. And then after that, I just feel like $1 million afterwards. Yeah, so that's a pretty good reason to fast.
Yeah, I've been messing around with intermittent fasting, but never that long. 3, 5, even a month. That's crazy. A month-long fast?
Yeah, I don't feel real good about doing a month, but I will say, like, if I had a condition, a chronic condition, that a week of fasting wasn't ameliorating, I would easily go for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. I mean, I'm sure I would lose. So I don't know who I would be. But again, fasting, I believe, I'm convinced, it's the single most profound metabolic intervention that is accessible to everybody. All you have to do is not eat or drink calories. You know, it's something that will cure so many chronic conditions. Why don't people just try it? It's beyond me why people won't try it. Even people that know about it and know about its benefits still don't want to try it. It's crazy. Or they'll start it, and then before the day is up, they had food. It's beyond me. And a lot of these conditions that we're talking about are life-threatening conditions, where they have X amount of months to live. And you're telling me you can't fast for your family? That's beyond me. Yeah. So fasting, again, it's free. It's accessible to everyone. It's gonna save you time and money. And at the very least, I think everyone needs to do a 5-day fast annually. But if you really have chronic conditions, you should do a 5-day fast quarterly. And so you guys probably know that we do a 5-day fast quarterly, but we also do a 24-hour fast twice a week, every Wednesday and every Sunday. And we don't have any chronic conditions, but I don't want to have any chronic health conditions. And it's a great thing to do as a family. And when you do this as a family and you go through this kind of struggle together,
yeah,
it's a spiritual bonding experience. And then you get to celebrate. Oh man, like, you know how good that feels to celebrate with the food and the family? It's a great feeling. It's a great practice. I'm glad that we do it.
Yeah, you're talking about mental clarity. You feel so much more mentally clear after that. What about during that?
Oh, during it, I'm in pain. That is so hard for me. You know, I get it. A lot of people tell you, oh, after day 3, I feel incredible. You know, most people's ketones are through the roof, and they got a level of mental clarity that is far above their baseline, and that'll keep them going day 4, day 5. And some people are like, oh, let me see how long I can go. I am not that guy. And I will say, I already start with pretty high or pretty efficient utilization of ketones. So my blood sugar's generally pretty low. My ketones, I'm pretty metabolically flexible. So I don't really perceive much of a benefit when it comes to energy systems when I start fasting. But man, so day 1 is nothing to me, right? Because I fast twice a week. Day 1, I don't feel. Day 2, yeah, like maybe 80% towards the end of the day. Day 3, I got hit by a semi truck or a tank. And then day 4 is like, I just start thinking, this is my last day. Day 4 is tough. I shouldn't be driving on day 4. I shouldn't be making any really important decisions, which I do, and then I preface it by, hey, I get takebacks on this one. But day 4 to me is like, it's the last day. Even though technically day 5 is, I always tell everybody, this is the last day. And so, but even on day 5, I'm wiped out. So it really does take getting in a cold shower. That gives me an hour or two of feeling really, really good. But I'm taking 3 or 4 showers a day, or hopping in that cold plunge like 2 or 3 times a day. And then you just kind of get worn out from it. And then you got to start to say, the body's trying to slow you down for a reason. Maybe you should heed that advice. Because like I have hour by hour planned out when we do our extended fasting. And we get massages every day. We normally will do some cold plunging. We get in the sauna. I take a nap. When's the last time you took a nap? Dude, it's amazing. I love it. I mean, I take an hour nap when I'm fasting. I have my book reading time. I have my breath work time. Of course, I still have my I gotta get in front of the computer time. But every hour is pretty much mapped out, including, the massage time. So, if the goal really is to rest and recover and get into an even deeper parasympathetic state, sometimes you gotta just lean into that and say, it's okay to have no energy, to feel like you have the flu, to feel like crap, and stop fighting it. But there's times where I have to fight it, because I also have to be productive. I mean, I can't just go to an island or be on an island and have nothing going on. I have done that before, and it was really nice. It's just not real practical to do with the responsibilities that I have right now.
Well, you come back to what was worse before you left. So
that's true. And then, I always say, like, if you're not proactive and if you don't lead, and if you don't create the life that you want to live, someone else is going to start creating it for you. And that also happens when you're not engaged and if you're not performing your leadership duties. Life goes on. All the businesses go on. And so if somebody, let's say, makes a brand decision where I normally would have signed off on it, and now I've been unresponsive for 3 days, and now we have something that's been expressed in the real world that I think looks hideous, either I have to live with it, or now we're going to pay a ton of money going back to square one fixing it.
And at the same time, that's why you surround yourself with pillars, so you can trust all the decisions that they're making if you are gone for a couple days.
Agree. Yeah. But also it's dangerous that everybody thinks they know branding. Everyone thinks they know branding, and not a lot of people do.
You were talking about reading books. What book are you reading right now?
I don't know the name of it. It's one of Steve Rinella's books. Something about the buffalo. His books are incredible, man.
I'm a big fan of Steve Rinella.
Yeah, and he also does the voiceover on his books. And it's just wild how you can vicariously experience like being in nature and just learning about the buffalo, the history of the buffalo, why he got obsessed with the buffalo. Yeah, so that's a book I'm on right now. But just before that, I read Bill Schindler's book. Again, I'm horrible with the titles, but he has a brand new book, and it's really about, he went and visited with a ton of tribes to see how these tribes eat, to see how they act, to see how they sleep, to see how they behave. And so he wrote a book, not based on, what does the U.S. food pyramid say you should eat. He wrote a book on here's how ancestral cultures ate, and here's how they still eat today. And that's a really cool book. In fact, I liked it so much, I contacted him to see if he would help me as a consultant on visiting these 10 tribes that we're going to visit in 2022. Smart guy. Dom, who, I've asked to lead the Liver King brand right now, said, well, now we're done with the ebook. Like, now we got to write the whole book, right? And I'm like, no, not yet. like when we go and visit with the tribes, because I've read every book that probably most other like experts have read on ancestral nutrition, especially Nutrition Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price, which in my opinion is the book. But anyways, now we got to go and see this firsthand, right? Let's go see this firsthand. Let's cast the biggest net we can over 10 tribes or over the world, because I don't just want to see people, you know, in the Arctic or extreme places where of course there's going to be less vegetation. You know, I really want to see people still in the tropics where you think there's going to be, you know, more fruit and more vegetable availability and maybe less animal consumption. Let's see what happens there. And so many people keep talking about, oh yeah, let's see how they eat. Like, of course I want to see how they eat, but I want to see how they sleep. I want to see how they move. I want to see how they connect with each other. What's their bonding look like? What do the thermal pressures look like? How hot do they get? How cold do they get? What do they do to compensate for that? What sort of shielding, you know, what kind of fighting? Like, I want to see all, it's not just how they eat. I want to see all 9 ancestral tenets. And so I think that's where a lot of pioneers have paved the path before me, but I want to see the whole thing. And what I really hope also comes out of this is a possible 10th tenet. So like, let's either validate these 9 tenets, or let's expand upon these 9 tenets, or let's figure out where things are wrong and we need, you know, some course corrections. But I'm also completely open-minded and fucking curious as hell. What else are they doing to express, you know, this dominant form? Because you hear and read about like these cultures still having these huge, wide faces, these jaws with perfect teeth, you know, tall, robust bones. There's no chronic conditions. People are happy and they seemingly have nothing in terms of material possessions, you know, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be more, right? There's probably a 10th tenet, maybe an 11th tenet. So yeah, these are things that I'm really, really curious to discover.
Do you have one that's on the like long time on the bucket list you've always had a particular interest in?
Tribe-wise?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I say this right. The Sami, they're up in the Arctic, or you heard me probably talk about wanting to go see the Net tribe in Siberia. I think part of the reason why I'm so drawn to wanting to go see them is their favorite food. Have I told you this already? So their favorite food is raw reindeer meat and reindeer blood. And just to be in such an extreme environment with those sort of thermal pressure, with those sort of cold pressures, you know, and they still do the ice dunking. You know, they still cut holes open in the ice, and I want to do that. I want to take my family to do that. I can't wait to throw my kids into that are going to be like, hell no. But you know, they get in the cold plunge here too. So they know they're going to be fine. And I don't care what it just doesn't get any colder than the cold plunge here. I mean, I've been in glacier runoff and snow melt, and it doesn't get any cold. It gets as cold as this, but not colder than this.
When you live in that environment, their adaptation to cold has to just be next level at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure. And again, you know, I would love to be able to visit them multiple times and see what does the adaptation look like maybe when it's not as cold. And if there's anything in particular that they do, you know, when those thermal pressures change, is it a slow adaptation? You know, because like I told you here, you know, when winter's coming, if you're not always walking with your shirt off in your bare feet, and one day you try it in the middle of winter, you're screwed. But, you know, I can come outside now and I can see my breath in front of me, and I can tell you that my core temperature is literally raising to warm me up where I'm sweating under my pits. I'm not sweating in my own house and it's 70 degrees, but out here it's maybe in the 30s or 40s, and there's not much wind chill right now. But with the wind chill that's getting down into the teens and the 20s, and your core temperature is going up. That's a wild thing, isn't it?
That's
and
incredible.
So to be thinking about, we know that vasodilation is a real thing, and obviously that's happening in the extremities, and you have just different, really cool biological mechanisms taking place that we know about. What about all the things we have no idea about? Right? We're still discovering organs. We're still discovering vitamins. Like, we think we have it all figured out, man, but we don't have it. Like, we have a fraction of it figured out. This is why I try and view almost everything through like this evolutionary biology framework. Like, from an anthropological perspective, if our early ancestors did it, I'm not saying we should do it. What I am saying is maybe we should do it. Let's think about that. A lot of people say stuff like, oh, well, you know, just 100 years ago, you know, we thought we could get rid of depression by cutting open someone's artery and bloodletting, you know, or what is it called when you cut out half the brain? Lobectomies, you know, or lobotomies, you know, and you know, that's not really ancient wisdom, is it? You know, people are talking about like these sorts of things. I'm like, that's not really ancient wisdom. I'm talking about the stuff that primitive cultures have been doing from 2 to 4 to 5 million years ago that wild animals still do today. You know, I'm not talking about, like, you talking about those sort of recent things, that's all modern day stuff. Bloodletting is a modern day thing. You know, I'm not talking about 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. You know, relatively speaking, that's brand new. Yeah, I'm talking about the things that we've been doing for millions of years, and that wild animals, alpha organisms, still dominating life, are doing today. So yeah, that's gonna be so cool, man. Yeah, and also like with child spacing. Are you familiar with that?
No.
That's a really cool thing. You know, here, we just have kids like almost not as soon as we can, but some people do. And a lot of traditional cultures, there's something called child spacing, where you have all the nourishment that's required to form the healthiest specimen that you possibly can. And so child spacing then means, okay, now you need some time to recover. And now you need time to rebuild all that biological robustness and resilience. First of all, just for the mother, but then to be able to produce the healthiest offspring again possible. So child spacing in traditional cultures, where they're including liver, fish eggs, bone marrow, all the nose to tail nourishment, can take 4 years. So child spacing oftentimes is their children, the offspring is planned with a 4-year separation. Have y'all ever heard of anything called second sibling syndrome? I'm a second sibling. Dude, you look at my brother. My brother is a foot taller than me. He's got this nice wide jaw. He could grow a mustache and a beard and hair on his chest when he was in like grade school. That's really, that's an exaggeration, but middle school. And man, everywhere we went, everybody liked my brother. The girls wanted to go out with him. The guys wanted to be like him. I wanted to be just like him. And you know, later on I come to find out second sibling syndrome is a real thing. You know, my brother, their first child, he got all the good stuff. He got all the good stuff. And I'm just a year and a couple of months younger than him. So before my mom could even replenish to be healthy herself, she's fertile enough to have me. She has me, but I think there's something really special about this too. I had to fight, man. I got picked on like crazy because I was tiny, you know, and nobody's messing with my brother. He's at least their height, if not bigger than them, you know, but everyone's picking on me. I'm an easy target. So when you have to learn how to fight like that, there's benefits to it too. But irrespective of those sort of social and environmental benefits, second sibling syndrome is a real thing. And it's a fun thing to start to look at. Oh, you know, who else do you know that's like that? What's their life like? You know, did they have it easier growing up, or was it more difficult growing up? And what have they become now? But from a physical genetic expression attribution, that's a real interesting thing to look at. Are they taller? Do they have bigger bones? Are they more attractive? Yeah. So again, that's a cool thing to look at, and I can't wait to go see some of those things for even for Birthright. Yeah, but I tell you, I love looking at that stuff, man, and I can't wait to go and see it now. You know, I don't know if traditional cultures are still practicing, you know, these old ways, but that's why Bill Schindler is just so incredibly important to me, because, you know, I've asked him, I said, I don't have this bias where I want to validate what I'm saying is accurate. I want to go and discover, you know, things that are going to challenge what we're trying to advance. And the goal here is to go and visit these primitive cultures that are still practicing this way, right? That, I mean, you have bands of the Hadza, and the Hadza have been around for millions of years, but you have recent bands of the Hadza that are using soybean oil and cooking with grains, you know, and have corn, and so you got to make sure that you're going to visit the right bands that are still honoring their old ways. And so that's, you know, we can't afford to go make a 1 week mistake and visit the wrong band of tribe somewhere. Or man, I can't tell you how disappointed I would be to go to one of these tribes and like see a microwave. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would be crushed. Yeah, so again, the goal is like, we got to go visit these primitive cultures that have been around for at least 100,000 years, that are still practicing and honoring their old ways.
It'll be pretty cool for your boys who, you know, due to the way that you've raised them and the life you've provided for them, maybe haven't been through necessarily the same struggles that you went through growing up, but going into places where there's no amenity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I haven't done that either, right? I mean, I think I'll be fine. I think they'll be fine too. I mean, but we jokingly talk about like, where are all our boys gonna find their like future wives? Like, I think this is how they're gonna find their future wives. But yeah, this is I think an important point is, even though we joke around about where are they gonna find their wives, we need to go back and revisit these primitive cultures and keep coming back here. When somebody adopts the 9 ancestral tenets, man, you can build strength and robustness and resilience and true health in a very short period of time. So, you know, the key, I think, to building genetic momentum and genetic wealth, once again, is not finding somebody who's been living pure, this ancestral lifestyle in one of these primitive tribes for, you know, generation to generation to generation. It's when you find your mate, we got to adapt some of these 9 ancestral tenets. And one day of living that way, you're exponentially healthier than the previous day.